Good morning, boys and girls, and all of God's children. Welcome to the Church School Neighborhood. I'm Sister Angie Spears, the excited South District Church School Superintendent, and my presiding elder is the Reverend Janet Jenkins Sturdivant of the South District of the Philadelphia Annual Conference. Again, we welcome you today, and what a wonderful lesson we have. Our special word for today is reckoning. Reckoning. And this story is a continuation. As you know, our fall quarter is called Love for One Another. And for every week, we've been studying the story of Joseph. We started out where our special word for the day was jealousy. We learned how Joseph's dad favored him, bought him that beautiful coat, made the brothers very jealous. And the brothers actually ended up selling him into slavery. And if you'll remember, because we'll talk about this in today's story, one of the brothers decided, because they were going to kill him and throw him in a ditch, and one of the brothers says, no, let's just throw him in the ditch. Let's not kill him. And his goal was to go back and get him. And that was Reuben, the oldest brother. So remember who Reuben is, because we'll hear about Reuben today in today's story. And then in last week's lesson, that's when we find out that when Joseph is sold into slavery, he's actually favored. There's something about Joseph. God just loves Joseph, and he rewards Joseph to the point that the person who purchases him makes him very high in command. And then later, Joseph ends up in prison through a false accusation, but God's favor is still on him. And because of his ability to interpret dreams, he gets out of prison. He correctly interprets a dream for the king about how there's going to be famine, how there's going to be a lot of wealth in the land, but followed by 7 years of famine. And so when he had correctly interpreted that dream, the king goes, I'm going to make you in charge of everything. You're going to be in charge of rationing things out so that when things become when the famine comes, you'll be in charge. So he's like second in the kingdom again. So he's rewarded. Now again, today's lesson, the word is reckoning. And reckoning, that's not a word that we hear very much. So it was interesting that, Patches? Patches says that he was reading the lesson, because we do ask you to try to read the lessons in advance. So when he was reading the lesson, he asked his grandfather, he says, Grandfather, what does reckoning mean? And the grandfather said, well, we could kind of call it, you're going to reap what you sow. And then what did you tell us, Patches? The grandfather said that he has a neighbor, one of the neighbors, and this particular neighbor would have parties all the time. It seemed like every other weekend he'd have parties, loud music. He knew that it was that the other neighbors, after a certain time they wanted it to be quiet, but he just would continue to have these really loud parties. And this went on for a long time, a number of years, and then things quieted down. Well, then it was not that long ago that same neighbor came over to Patch's grandpa, and he said, guess what? There's a family that's just moved in behind me, and they have a lot of teenagers. They have these parties all the time, loud music. They have this bright light in the backyard. I can barely sleep. And Patches' grandfather listened. And then he said to himself, I guess he's going to reap what he sows. If there's a reckoning that's happening here. Good example. Good, very good description of what reckoning means. And our lesson for today, the title is Love versus Guilt. Love versus guilt. Now we're in Genesis chapter 42, and we're going to be looking at verses 6 through 25. And again, love versus guilt. Let's take a look there. We're going to go straight to our Bibles. And we're not going to read it all, but I want you to get a sense of our story for today. Now, Joseph was governor over the land. Remember I said the king made him in charge of rationing things out? And it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. And this is actually matching the dream that Joseph had had years ago, that the brothers would be bowing down to him. Verse 7, Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them. So this is his first time seeing his brothers. They've come to Egypt because they have word that if you go to Egypt, you're going to be able to get food. They've saved food for everyone. So he recognizes the brothers, but he acted as if he was a stranger. Now he's totally different. He's got on Egyptian clothes. They think he's an Egyptian, but he's not. Then he said to them, the brothers, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. That's verse 8. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food." So they're giving him utmost respect. They're calling him their, my lord. And he says, "No, you have come to see the nakedness of the land." So he continues to say, no, I think you're spies. And they say, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." So they're just trying to prove we're really just normal people. We're 12 brothers. One stayed with our father. One is no more. And Joseph said, "It is as I spoke to you. You are spies." So this goes on, and they're getting really concerned. Like, oh my gosh, they think, he thinks that we're spies and we're not. And then Joseph tells them, "This is what I need you to do. I need for you to stay here and send one of the brothers to go get the one that you say." And like, did you make this up, that there's one brother that's still at home? So I want you're all going to stay here, kind of like in prison. And one of you can go to get this other brother, because I want to see that that this story is really what you say it is. And then after 3 days, he comes back to where they are and he goes, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Instead of sending one of you away, I'm going to keep one of you here. And then all of you can go back, but I want you to come back with that other brother." So here's their response. In verse 21, "Then they said to one another, 'We are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us.'" They're thinking about Joseph and what they did to him. "And we would not hear. Therefore, this distress has come upon us." They think that they're being paid back for what they did to their brother. They know what they did. Verse 22, and this is our memory verse. "And Reuben answered them, saying, 'Did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen? Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us.'" So they've already admitted, we think this is happening because of what we did. Our brother pleaded and we didn't listen. And now look at this bad fortune that's come upon us. And then Reuben is saying, "Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you not to do this to the boy?" But they did not know that Joseph understood them. They think he's an Egyptian and he doesn't speak their language, but he does remember his his language, right? And he returned to them. What he does, he turns away from them and he weeps because he hears them. He hears them now expressing regret. And he hears the one brother said, "Didn't I tell you we shouldn't have done that to our brother?" And he goes away and he weeps. And then he comes back to them. And he tells them, "This is what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you can all leave except one. And I want you to go and bring that one brother back to prove to me that you're not spies." So that's why you see our lesson is called Love versus Guilt. And if you can see the love that was in today's lesson, it's certainly Joseph who's showing love. He could have just done something. He could have said, "I'm the brother and you all know what you did to me, so there's your death, or you're going to prison, or you're going to be hung, or whatever." And he doesn't. He doesn't even tell them who he is. And then the guilt is certainly, we're seeing that from the brothers. They feel very, very badly. As we were reading this story, it was Buttercup. He says, "I know what guilt feels like." And what did you tell us, Buttercup? Oh, Buttercup. Buttercup says he went to a birthday party. And at the end of the party, his friend's mother, there was extra cake. It was delicious birthday cake. And she says, "Buttercup," she says, "I'm going to give you a little piece of birthday cake to take home for you." And then she says, "Don't you have a little sister?" Buttercup says, "Yes." She says, "I want you to take a piece of cake for her." And she cut out a nice big piece for him to take home to Daisy. Well, Buttercup says that when on the way home, he decided to switch the pieces. So he'd get the big piece and give Daisy the little piece. It was delicious cake. And he says when he got home, he gave the little piece to Daisy. And she didn't know better. And she was like, "Oh, thank you." And Buttercup, what did you say, Buttercup? Buttercup said he just felt guilty. He just felt so bad about doing that. He said it was just wrong. And he knew from Sunday school, God doesn't bless you when you do bad things. Something bad could happen just because, you just can't get away with doing bad things. And so he actually went to his mom and said, "Mom, I want Daisy to have the other piece too." He says, as a matter of fact, that other piece, the bigger piece, did belong to Daisy. So in the end, Daisy got both pieces because she had eaten the little one, and he felt too guilty to eat the bigger piece. So therefore, Daisy, between not the same day, but later in the week, she got to have the big piece too. So certainly Buttercup understands what guilt is like. Let's take a look at our memory verse for today. And that's going to be Genesis 42:22. Then Reuben answered them, "Did I not tell you not to wrong the boy? But you would not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood." Let's see if you can do that with me. Then Reuben answered them, "Did I not tell you not to wrong but you would not? So now there comes a for his blood." Can you fill that in with me? Then Reuben answered them, "Did I not tell you not to wrong the boy? But you would not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood." And that was Genesis 42:22. We trust that you'll join us next week. We're going to finish up the story of Joseph, and we're going to be reading Genesis chapter 45, verses 1 through 15. It's a wonderful love story as you see how God just continues to show love and how Joseph shows love to his brothers. So again, Genesis 45 verses 1 through 15. And the lesson title is God's Plan Revealed. God's Plan Revealed. Until then, have a good week. Be blessed. Bye-bye.